Imagine you were in a market in your home country. You want to buy apples. You take out your money. The shopkeeper takes it. You get your apples. It is simple. Now imagine your country needs to buy something bigger. Not apples, but oil, or medicine, or steel for buildings. Your government goes to the seller. Maybe the seller is in Saudi Arabia or Japan. Your government offers their own money, the money you use every day. But the seller shakes his head. He says, "No, I do not want your money. It is useless to me." He asks for something else. He asks for the only money that works everywhere. He asks for US dollars. This is the invisible rule of the world. You can live your whole life without visiting America. You can hate American movies. You can disagree with American politics. But your country cannot survive without American money. Why? Why does the whole world trust this one piece of green paper? And what happens if your country runs out of it? Today, we are going to look at the engine of the global economy. We will see why the US dollar is not just money, it is a weapon, and it is a trap. To understand this, we must look at a problem called the trust problem. Imagine you are a farmer in Brazil. You sell coffee. A buyer in Turkey wants your coffee. The buyer in Turkey has Turkish lira. You have Brazilian reals. You do not want Turkish lira. You cannot spend it in Brazil. And the buyer does not have Brazilian reals. So, how do you trade? In the old days, hundreds of years ago, we used gold. Gold is heavy. It is hard to move across the ocean. You cannot send gold over the internet. So the world needed a substitute for gold, something that everyone agrees is valuable, something that does not change its value every day. In 1944, just before the Second World War ended, powerful leaders met in a place called Bretton Woods. The United States was the strongest country. They had the most gold in the world. So the U.S. made a promise. They said, the U.S. dollar is as good as gold. If you have dollars, you can come to us and we will give you gold. The world agreed. Every country started keeping US dollars in their banks instead of gold bars. It was easier. It was safer. But then, in 1971, the US changed the rules. They said, we will not give you gold anymore, but you still have to use our dollars. Now you might ask, why did the world accept this? Why didn't everyone just stop using the dollar? Because the US did something very clever. They made sure you needed dollars for the most important thing on earth: energy. The United States made a deal with Saudi Arabia. The deal was simple. The U.S. would protect Saudi Arabia with its military. In exchange, Saudi Arabia promised to sell its oil only in U.S. dollars. This changed everything. Every country needs oil. To get oil, you need dollars. To get dollars, you have to sell your goods to America, or you have to trade with someone else who has dollars. This created a cycle. The world needs oil. The world buys dollars to pay for oil. This demand makes the dollar very strong. This system is great for the United States. Think about it. If your country wants oil, you have to work. You have to make cars, or grow food, or build computers. You sell these things to get dollars. But the United States, if they want oil, they just print more dollars. It sounds unfair. It is unfair. But for a long time, it was stable. It kept the global trade system moving. But now let's look at the uncomfortable math. Because the whole world uses dollars, the U.S. has a special power. They control the flow of money. Imagine the world economy is like a house with water pipes. The water is money. It flows to every room: China, Europe, Africa, India. But the main valve, the tap that turns the water on and off, is in Washington, D.C. We saw this happen recently. When the U.S. disagrees with a country, they can turn off the tap. This is called sanctions.
They can stop a country from using the global banking system. They can freeze the money that a country has saved in foreign banks. Suddenly, having dollars is not safe. If you make the US angry, your money becomes worthless. You cannot access it. This scared many countries. They started thinking, maybe we should not keep all our savings in US dollars. You may have heard the news. People say the dollar is dying. They say countries like China, Russia, and India are building a new system. They are buying gold. They are trading in their own currencies. It sounds exciting. It sounds like a big revolution. But here's the reality check. Look at the numbers. Today, nearly 60% of all the money held by central banks around the world is still in US dollars. Nearly 90% of all currency trades involve the dollar. Why? If everyone wants to leave the dollar, why don't they? Because there is no alternative. The euro? Europe has too many different governments and economic problems. The Chinese yuan? It is strictly controlled by the Chinese government. You cannot move money in and out of China easily. Gold? It is too hard to use for buying millions of tons of steel instantly. The US dollar is not perfect, but it is the least bad option. It is the cleanest shirt in the laundry basket. Also, there's the debt trap. Many developing countries have borrowed money. They borrowed in US dollars because the interest rates were low. Now they have to pay that money back in dollars. If their own currency becomes weak, like we have seen in many countries recently, it becomes much harder to buy dollars. Their debt grows bigger even if they didn't borrow more money. They are trapped. They need dollars just to survive. They cannot simply walk away from the system. So, what does the future look like? The United States has a magic card. They can borrow endless amounts of money because the world keeps buying their debt. The world buys US debt because it is the safest place to put money. But trust is fragile. If the US prints too much money, the value goes down. If they use the dollar as a weapon too often, other countries will try harder to find a new way. We are seeing small cracks in the dam. Countries are doing small trades without dollars. Saudi Arabia is selling some oil for Chinese money. India is buying oil with rupees. It's a slow change. It won't happen next year. It might not happen for 20 years. But for now, the reality remains. When you wake up tomorrow, the price of the food you eat, the gas in your car, and the phone in your hand is decided by the value of a green piece of paper from a country thousands of miles away. The world hates the dollar, but the world cannot live without it. And that is the most powerful position any country has ever held in human history.